Welcome back to another episode of Treknicity, the Star Trek podcast where we talk about our favorite subject is Star Trek.
Star Trek.
I'm your host, Lars.
And I'm your other host, Brandon.
In this episode, we are going to be doing a recap of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Episode 6, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. Very heavy episode.
Pike booty call.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, that's the whole thing with Star Trek. If the captain's not getting a little action, is it really Star Trek? Because come on, Kirk got all of it, and we never really saw that with Pike because we didn't see too much of him as far as seeing him in other episodes, because he only showed up in basically 3 episodes: the original pilot and the 2-part episode of Menagerie, and in that one he's Captain Melty Face. So yeah. We're going to be talking about that episode, and then we'll kind of go from there. Before we get started, a couple of things. This episode is, you are warned, spoilerific. We are going to talk about specific details about this episode. So if you have not watched it yet, please stop this, go watch it, come back. All right, that being said, moving on. In our efforts to widen our community with other podcasts, we are doing some promos and bumpers for other shows that we work with. And that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do a few shout outs for our friends out there. Do you like reading comic books? Are you a comic book artist or writer? Do you love discussing comic book movies and TV shows? Then the Irreverent Nerd podcast might be for you. Join co-hosts Richard and Will every Wednesday as they discuss these topics and more. You can also follow them on Instagram at irreverent_nerd. That's at IRREVERENT_nerd. See you around the Nerdverse, fellow humans. No, how many times I do that, I keep screwing it up. I'm good with that.
Nerd.
And set face to holy cow. It's my favorite podcast, Starship Tempest. Starship Tempest is a real play podcast set in the time between Kirk and Picard, where a group of friends stumbled their way through their first role-playing campaign, going clumsily, if not boldly, where no one has gone before. All right, I totally lifted that from their opening titles. Hey, how can you not do it with that line, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, if you love Star Trek, you love podcasts, and you love laughing your aft deck off, then check out Starship Tempest at starshiptempest.com or wherever you stream your podcasts.
I like laughing my aft deck off.
And certainly last but not least, we have In Star Trek We Trust, the Star Trek podcast hosted by Kevin and Ethan. You can find them on Twitter at Star Trek We Trust, on Instagram at In Star Trek We Trust Podcast, and of course watch them live as they broadcast on Twitch at twitch.tv/In Star Trek We Trust. Wow, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was.
All right.
And we're going to be on Twin City Trekkies.
That's right. And as Brandon just said, this morning we recorded a very, very cool episode of the Twin Cities Trekkies podcast with Will as special guests, and as such, we will be discussing diversity, largely diversity in Star Trek, but also diversity in science fiction. Full stop. I'll tell you, we had a great conversation. I was a little concerned that we were going to be talking about, or be 3 white guys talking about diversity and how hypocritical that might sound. But I feel like we really did it justice, and we were able to have a wonderful discussion, especially during this month of this Pride Month. We get to explain kind of our backstories, our histories of how we kind of grew into the people that we are now, and how we have come to appreciate everything that we see in science fiction and in Star Trek and society as general. Society in general. But yeah, so be sure to check that out. Look up Twin Cities Trekkies on any platform. Go to anchor.fm, and that'll take you to Spotify, I think Apple Podcasts, as well as I think their main was one as well. You can listen to it on anchor.fm as well. So
basically, wherever you get your podcast.
Exactly. So let's get down to the rat killing, and let's talk about some Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
Oh
my.
Oh my. This is probably one of the heaviest episodes so far of Strange New Worlds.
I wrote that down. I wrote powerful episode.
Yeah, incredibly powerful. But one thing which I find is really cool is, and this was brought up during our recording session with Twin Cities Trekkies, is that one thing we've kind of come to realize is that Star Trek Strange New Worlds has started this trend, or if not started, continued a trend from previously successful series where they put a lot of effort in to develop the backstories of the characters and spend some time developing or showing you a side of that character that you didn't know before. In the second episode, we had Uhura. In the third episode, I believe it was La Noonien Singh. And then we also had the number one, and also
Spock.
Of course, yeah, we had Spock. And in this episode, we focus a lot on Pike and M'Benga. Some very big developments with Dr. M'Benga. So, all right. So, where should we start? I would say let's kind of give a brief, good idea, a brief synopsis of kind of how the episode goes. But I will try to avoid doing a very dry chronological breakdown of the episode. But of course, like any good story, you start at the beginning. The Enterprise is kind of cruising along. They get a distress signal from a shuttle. They're under attack. Of course, they try to figure out what's going on. They come to find out that this shuttle is being attacked by a larger warship. They have asked for help. Enterprise tries to wave off the warship, but they get ignored. And in this particular scene, we have Uhura going through security training. So they're running her through drills. They put her in the helmsman position on the bridge, and she basically accidentally shoots and destroys the attacking ship.
She just meant to hit their guns, right?
Right.
The guns.
Yeah, and they moved, and this is actually a good little callback to Star Trek 3. Commander Krug gives his gunner the order to just disable the Grissom, and he fires one shot, blows it to smithereens, and he's like, "I told you to disable." He's like, "Lucky shot." Well, in this case, Uhura was aiming for their weapons and popped them. That being said, it's kind of one of those situations where, what do you do? I think we're all kind of like in shock that she actually pasted them, and as such, you're like, what do they do? What's going to happen to her? I'm like, nothing, because it was an accident. It's not like she did it on purpose. She was doing so in the aid of another ship that was requesting assistance. So they go ahead and they turn around and say, hey, the shuttle's asking to beam over. Their life support is dying. They beam over, and over comes a woman, a male, and a young boy. And of course, we get to see the playful look of disbelief on Pike's face when he realizes that it's his old flame, Alora. And yeah, I mean, it's when it comes down to it, that's kind of the one thing we like about this series is that it doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, there are some elements in this series so far, especially in the episode with the Gorn, and Noonien Singh has to go back and kind of scan her memories to figure out what what she knows about them. That was kind of serious, and we thought, oh shit, somebody might bite it on this one. But in this one, it's sort of like, oh look, it's Pike and one of his old girlfriends. What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
What did you think when his old flame Alora shows up on the transporter pad and she refers to him as Lieutenant Pike?
Oh yeah, well I didn't know that there was a history before. Because I didn't read anything about it. I was assuming she was an old flame or somebody he used to know. And yeah, the way she called him lieutenant, like they were very familiar since she called him that.
Yeah, and so Alora is the president of the planet Majalis. And in the past, of course, as I just said, she was a girlfriend of Pike's at some point. But of course, they went their separate ways and thought maybe to never see each other again. Yet here he is saving her from certain destruction. We find out that the man is the biological father of the boy, which
he makes a point of saying that. Oh, are you? It was a little weird that he said that. I was like, oh, that's weird that Pike says, "Are you his father?" Like,
yeah, it's like, "Are you the boy's father?" And he says, "In the biological sense only."
Biological sense only.
And I thought, oh, is this some sort of like, are they like an estranged couple or something?
Yeah.
But come to find out, it's a little bit darker than that. It's a little, not so much more sinister, but definitely more darker than that.
But we definitely don't find that out because the whole half episode is just all lighthearted.
Yeah.
Kind of funny, like, oh, that's his old girlfriend. Because he looks, I forget who's next to him. Was it number one or?
Yeah, that's right. And he was so tongue tied. I like how he was tongue tied. He's this is
Yeah.
He's like number one Una Chin Riley. She's looking at him like, yeah, Lieutenant Pike.
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell her who I am. Really. But yeah, so it starts off sort of seriously because they're there to they get the distress call. They're there to help out, and then they do help him out and. Like, oh, look, it's one of your old flames, your old girlfriend. Oh, what are we going to do about this? But, like, okay, cool, whatever. Then...
and then he says they want to check the boy out because he's bleeding, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, he had some sort of head injury.
That's when they cut to Dr. Bavanga.
Yep.
And he's with his daughter.
That's right. And we find out that... we find out just how long he's actually been doing this whole thing with her, and because he's reading a book to her.
Starting to figure it out.
Yeah, he's reading a book to her, and she's like, the last couple of times we did this, you read this, and then he's like, oh yeah, well it's sort of few and far between, and then we realize he's taking long breaks because he knows that the longer he leaves her out of the transporter buffer, the sicker she's getting and the greater chance that she eventually will pass, which is kind of bittersweet. But, as soon as Nurse Chapel comes in and tells them they got incoming, is like he snaps out of it and he's back to all business. They're doing, he's like doing a little bit of scan on the boy because they say that there is some sign of head trauma. And that's interesting because, again, they play that really well. I think they really played that well insofar as that they say, oh, he's suffered some sort of head trauma, and you're thinking, oh, something happened when that ship was trying to blast him to smithereens. But no, that's not what it is at all, and we've come to find out. So he's doing an exam on him. He's futzing around with the little medical scanner, And the guy, the boy's father, takes it out of his hand and like, give me that. You're dangerous with this thing, sort of. And he's futzing with it, and he changes something so that this, so that the thing can now scan.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Chapel had the micro scalpel or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's right.
And he was like, "What is that archaic thing?"
Yeah, and she's like, like a micro scalpel, and she's like, God, give me that thing. So he futzes with it and does something, and he's like, now you can treat him properly. And they come to find out he's got something implanted in his head, which we don't find out about until later in the episode.
And this is when it starts getting a little weird. Like, oh, maybe so. It's like their ships are way less advanced than theirs, than the Enterprise, but their medical technology seems to be way more advanced.
Exactly, which is kind of, you're like thinking, well, maybe it's just something different. Maybe they're just different, and you know, yeah, they go through this. They go round and around in circles in this, and Pike ends up going down and having a little bit of let's just say some captain's personal time with Alora, the president of Majalis, and you know, they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have some fun. Let's do some stuff. Let's take, let's do the thing. And
and we get to see a shirtless Captain Pike.
Yeah, I'll tell you the big thing I took away from this episode from Pike, other than his moral decision, is the fact that when let's see, who was in the, was it Uhura was in the turbo lift with him at the beginning of the episode, and dude's got Johnny Bravo hair going on.
Yeah.
I mean, his hair is like way up there, and now of course the memes are proliferating the internet with him. Like there's my favorite so far is the where somebody took Johnny Bravo and put him in Pike's uniform.
That's funny.
And then there's the other one. There's something about Pike, so it has the hair like up like that. Like, oh jeez, God. Oh yeah, I get it. Yep. But then we come to realize, that the reason why these people were being attacked was that there's basically members of a rebel faction that don't want them to do what they're going to do, which in this case, apparently the planet's core systems run off of a cerebral connection to a child, and effectively
like a quantum computer that runs off a child's brain.
Yeah, and they effectively turn the child into a giant energizer, or a secondary processing unit. And when Pike, like they invite Pike to see this, when he realizes that they took a child's corpse out of the system and they're about to plug the new one in, he's like, no way, I can't let this happen. You can't kill a child. And they're like, he chose this. He accepts his responsibilities. It's a great honor for him. Blah 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 blah.
This is what he was born and bred for. And they said that his whole body is
yeah, he's
programmed for this.
Yeah, he's been prepped for this so that he can do his job and the people can continue doing what they have to do. Now, interesting concept. Of course, Pike tries to fight it and they knock him out. He's like, I'm gonna get this kid out of here, and he's like, no, they're like, no, you're not, and they knock him out. When he wakes up, he's on the bed. Alora is there. They have this discussion about whether or not he needs to, or that this is moral, that they should be doing this to a child. And he's like, we wouldn't do that. And she's like, does your Federation, does your Starfleet not, has it not been built on the backs of suffering of children? And that one kind of caught me off guard by chance. But I was like, really, no? And she's like, is there no starving, no suffering? I'm like, but no, there really isn't. I mean, that's the whole point, is they had this conversation. It's like that was the whole thing. And it was an Enterprise that they did this. They had this discussion. T'Pol was talking about how savage humanity still was. And he's like, look, in like less than 2 generations, we did away with war, poverty, hunger, suffering, and all that stuff. And, it was kind of a weird conversation for them to have. But not I mean, I understand. I understand that it was, she was trying to say, hey, look, we're no different than anybody else. We just found a unique solution to our problems. Okay. And Pike's like, I can't abide by this. So he pieces out and she's left there crying, because she wanted him to stick around. She wanted him to accept what they do, and it wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to do that. And yeah, we I know we kind of glossed over part of it about the whole rebellion. There is a colony that is rebelling against the Majalis culture, thinking that they shouldn't be sacrificing children. Even when they go and search the ship that Uhura had destroyed, they found like the little challenge coin from one of the rebels, and it was
guards.
It was it turned out it was one of the first servant's guards who decided to defect. They showed the little challenge coin on the other side. It's all scarred up. They said that's a symbol of him turning his back on his people and his duty and all that stuff. And it's a really kind of it is a conundrum. It is really kind of quite the dilemma, because Starfleet is adopting the General Order 1, which becomes the Prime Directive. So they're trying not to interfere too much, but at the same time, Pike's like, I can't let this kid die in good conscience. And they're like, there's nothing you can do about it. So
that decision also affects Dr. Bavenga, because he discovers that they have the medical knowledge to probably cure his daughter, but they won't share it with him because they're not in the Federation. So he was probably thinking, oh, let's hurry up and get them into the Federation so I can get a hold of this technology and cure my daughter.
Exactly.
But then they find out about the child, and
right. So the child's father, Gamal,
like, I'm reporting you guys, and you're not joining the Federation.
Yep. I don't care if it means the death of my daughter. You're not getting in. Sorry. Peace out, Holmes. However, the thing is that they do, they pose quite a dilemma, and a difficult decision for them to make. And in the end, again, Pike's like, I can't abide by this. I can't condone this. I gotta go. So he beams out and gone. And so Laura knows that that's it. He's gone. He's not coming back.
He didn't even let her finish her speech.
No, he's like, she's talking. He's like,
number 1, get me out of here.
Yep. See yous. Gotta go. Peace. And that being said, he goes back to the ship. We find out that in the end, Gamal, the boy's father, was not down for the sickness, so to speak, and was not. He was looking to defect. He had grown tired and didn't believe in the rituals and ceremony.
Sacrifice his son.
Right. In the end, he offers some help privately to Dr. Mabenga with the hopes that he can cure his daughter, which was kind of very sweet in the end. I thought it was very powerful.
I'm wondering if by the end of the season she'll be cured.
I hope so, because that'd
be cool. Because then, hopefully, next season we'll get to see her running around the ship, and it'll be just like how TNG had kids running around and stuff.
Right. Do you remember the episode Yesterday's Enterprise when Guinan says to Captain Picard, there's supposed to be, or there are children on this ship, and he's like, Guinan, we're at war. He's like, She's like, no, we're not. At least we're not supposed to be. And it's like, yeah, you're right. These starships were, that's how they did. When you had 5-year missions, it was different. They didn't worry too much about families in particular. However, as we got into the Next Generation, when those exploration cruisers like the Galaxy class were designed with families in mind. So they could go on longer missions. They could go further out. They could be further away from civilization.
Yeah, because in Kirk's era, it was still trying to figure out what's out there.
Yeah,
Like they were still going to be getting in battles, still getting. They don't know. Like they could be, their ship could be blown up in the next like week. So it really
exactly.
wasn't a family oriented ship
Right. They
then.
didn't know who they're going to run into, so they didn't make too
They were
many
more
option accommodation.
military, a little bit, military and science.
So overall, what were your general impressions of the episode?
Another great episode. Yeah, it's a very powerful episode with, especially with Pike, seeing like where he draws the line and more of his backstory a little bit.
Yeah,
Seeing
exactly.
him.
I agree. That was
Yeah,
that was something that was very powerful, especially at the end when you see him take he pours himself a glass of bourbon, and he's just looking out at Majalis,
yeah,
and that was like, wow, dude, that's pretty crazy. Um, but
yeah. He threw it all away. Yeah, because he was happy with her. They were both happy, and now
and now he had to
in
let her
the
go
end,
because he couldn't
yeah, he had to let her go.
he couldn't condone their practices. And he even said, like, he's like, I'm gonna go back and try again, and she's like, even if you try, if you unplug him, you're gonna kill him. And
Yeah,
I was like, well, shit, okay, thanks, I guess. Um,
yeah. What about you? What'd you think?
yeah, again, from when you look at it on the surface, you're like, oh, this is kind of a standard Star Trek episode. But when you dig a little bit deeper, one thing that's really good is because they're doing this with a character that has had so little development in the past, you're able to really dig deep and see what they're gonna do. Like, where are the characters' morals? Where are their beliefs? We didn't know this
Yeah,
with Pike. I mean, the best we got with it is that he was pretty headstrong and that he was upset about having to deal with the loss of crew members in the Rigelian system prior to the events that took place in the cage. And he still plays that pretty well. He still is very indecisive because he's seen what's happened to himself, and now you see even when he decides to stand up and or make a stand against these people, he's still conflicted,
mm,
and he had to make a hard decision to leave Alora behind.
yeah,
So again, another wonderful episode. A lot of great subtext in it. A lot of great social commentary in it, and I am very much looking forward to what they do in the next episode.
yeah. Me too.
So
I'm looking forward to more of Nurse Chapel's backstories.
yeah, actually, that's another thing is that Jess Bush is doing a fantastic job as Nurse Chapel. And we'll see what happens with her. They'll see if they spend more time developing these individual characters and what happens to them. And again, as you said, hopefully
Yeah,
they'll do more with Mabanga's daughter.
yeah.
So, all right, folks. Well, thank you very much for watching this episode of Treknicity. We very much enjoyed spending time sharing our thoughts and feelings with it. If you have any questions if you have any comments, please don't hesitate to leave them down here for us or shoot us a DM on either Facebook or Instagram. Instagram, we're probably the most active on. But you can find us, of course, at Treknicity. You can see down here, right there is all those nice little
Feel free
social
to
things
slide
right
into
there.
the DM.
Slide into the DM. What are we, 20? Oh, jeez. That being said, thank you again. This has been Treknicity. I'm Lars.
And I'm Brandon.
And remember to rock out, which is Spock out. We'll see you next time, folks.